Kilner, CEO and co-founder at Deciem, and I'm very excited to be here with Cosmetics Business Live today. In this presentation, we're going to be talking around what transparency really means to Deciem and why it was so important to us that it's a fundamental part of our DNA. We're going to talk about The Ordinary and how it's changed the path of beauty, and really how it was much of brand and our founders' initial frustrations with the industry that really led us to create the brand, and actually how integrity, especially when it comes to our products, is far more than just what's in the bottle. It's around our commitment to doing the right thing. And again, that's more than just pricing. We look at what that means to us in terms of our audience, our people, and the world. Our commitment to science, I think, is what's really driven such an engaged audience for us. And again, this comes back in the circle to the importance of authenticity and how that's really been what has led to Deciem's success. So what do we mean about transparency and why is it a fundamental part of Deciem? So when Brandon's vision of Deciem, when it comes to skincare is a functional industry. It's not as emotional as colour or fragrance or, even outside of beauty, other industries. And one of the biggest challenges, I think, in the world of skincare is that people often are skeptical. They think a product won't work before they think it will work. And that's different, again, to colour, where someone can use a lipstick and they can instantly see the payoff of that colour. So it's a completely different category. And that's why actually we had this belief that transparency can play a role. And actually the way to get trust back into skincare is to actually just be really honest about the products, the ingredients, and actually what skincare really is. And, we had a huge barrier to break when The Ordinary launched at, much more of an accessible price point. And again, people in the past have associated price point with quality. And hopefully everyone knows by now that that's very much not the case for The Ordinary. And we think about another industry, again, if you think about the healthcare industry and you think about if you have a headache and you go into the shop and you want to buy aspirin and you know that aspirin will cost you a few dollars, but you'd never walk into a pharmacy and see aspirin sold for $4, $40, $400. Yet in skincare, some of those same ingredients can be at such huge different price points depending on the brand and the packaging and all of these other components. And we said, actually, for us at The Ordinary, it's all going to just be around the ingredient and education. And actually, we shouldn't put a price point on education. Let's make amazing skincare that's accessible to all. And that was really the foundation of what Deciem was built on. And I think it's been amazing to actually see how the brand's really just grown through that kind of word of mouth trust that's really been built into it. And that's something that's just so important at Deciem in everything we do. And you'll see on the quote on the slide at the moment, we believe that being good is far more than just the products. It's really our whole end-to-end, our ecosystem. At Deciem, we do everything in-house. And actually just the fundamentals have to be about doing the right thing. Our retail teams, we don't pay commission because it would make no sense to incentivize them to sell a high number of dollars, when actually that might mean giving the consumer the wrong person. And we're just as happy for a consumer to walk into our doors, purchase no product, but actually leave with education, leave with a feeling of being empowered around skincare, around the beauty products. And so we always try and set out to be different, but always with that constant theme of doing the right thing. And we really believe that this is kind of part of this movement to, a more transparent world of beauty, which is something that we are big advocates for. And I think, through social media has really led every person out there to be almost their own micro-influencer with their own circle of people. And I think the more that we kind of show that kindness and the love, the more it's spreading to everyone. So next I'm going to talk about The Ordinary and the story around how The Ordinary launched. So interestingly, when we first came up with the concept of The Ordinary, we never designed it thinking it was going to become a huge commercially successful brand. We launched it because we actually wanted to make a point about how ahead the science was in some of our other brands at Deciem, particularly our skincare brand called Neod. And we would get frustrated when we would see some of our Neod products next to other skincare products, which were good products in the industry, but we felt like they weren't necessarily being transparent around the price point, the efficacy for the ingredients that they were selling. So we said, actually, there's a huge gap because there are some ingredients, many ingredients in the skincare world that have been around forever. And just like that healthcare example of, aspirin, there's things that have been around for a long time. They just work very well. And actually, because they've been around for such a long time, they have a very accessible price point. So we said, actually, The Ordinary is going to be launched as the skincare brand that can really communicate integrity and be transparent in an industry which at times can be quite confusing and, quite hard to really differentiate between kind of certain ingredients and actually get to know what's right for your skin. We think even 10 years ago, maybe hyaluronic acid and retinol were maybe a couple of the only ingredients people had heard of, and even the people hearing of those was probably quite a niche audience. Yet today we're in a world where actually a huge majority of people know the ingredient hyaluronic acid, and the more education we can give to the audience, the more empowered they are going to be to make their right decisions. So I think when we launched The Ordinary, we launched it with this idea, but again, never expected it to get to the scale that it has done. And we've never done any traditional advertising for The Ordinary. So actually, The Ordinary has really grown so much by word of mouth. And again, I think that really adds to the authenticity of the brand, because actually this is often recommended by someone's sister, by someone's friend, by someone's brother, by a family member or someone, a colleague. And I think that word of mouth and that organic growth has really contributed so much to actually the kind of grassroots start of the brand. And another big contributor to that word of mouth growth was on social media. There's the Deciem and The Ordinary chat room on Facebook, which has got almost 200,000 members. And this is run completely independent from Deciem. And this is just our audience sharing tips with each other, answering each other's questions on what products to use, what ingredients are best. And again, what we try to do with The Ordinary through the way that we have labeled the products, through the information we have made accessible on our website, down to the pH of the product and what it contains, what it doesn't contain. So actually people can actually access and really understand that information, because we believe even at a more accessible price point, you should never have to compromise on your ethics, on your value, on your quality. And that was so important for us within The Ordinary. And I've said before, but for us, integrity goes far more beyond just the bottle. It's really around our commitment to doing the right thing. And I think this is so important, especially today more than ever. I think consumers don't just buy a product, they buy a brand. They want to work with a brand that they actually believe in the values. And that's why actually it's important to have incredible formulas and to get the pricing and all of those other kind of key matrices right. But actually it goes much further than that. So, sustainability, we have a whole section on our website and being transparent around, we're not the most sustainable brand at the moment in the world. There's far more we could be doing. And we have outlined our approach of how we want to get to a much better place. And, we get feedback from our audience. And actually, those comments, we listen, we kind of build, we know things are changing at such a fast pace that actually we always need to be adaptable to make sure that we have our kind of roadmap on how we are going to become more sustainable, and we're listening to what our audience wants, what our team wants, what we all believe is the right thing to do. And so that honest communication is so important. It's even if you're not doing what you need to be doing right now, I think letting people know that you recognize that and these are the changes you're making to get you to a better place is so important. Innovation really is at the heart of Deciem. We have our own amazing scientific teams led up by our Chief Scientific Officer, Prithvi. And, our teams are responsible for coming up with every product. For us, it's so important that new product development sits in the lab, not within a marketing team. It would make no sense for us that a marketing team would come up with what needs selling. Let's start with the science. Let's start with what works. Let's ignore trends and actually kind of focus a little bit more just internally in terms of actually what our scientists really believe we should be doing. And again, I think some of these decisions, it's what's right for Deciem, and it's what's in our core. And I think not being afraid to venture away from some of the norms, I think is so important to really be your authentic self. In terms of our people, I hope if you get the chance to talk to anyone who works at Deciem, they'll tell you how important kindness is to us. And it's a value that I so truly feel is now embedded across so many of our people. And the policies in which we put in place are one part of those things, like our parental leave. So all mothers and fathers get a full 6 months paid wherever they are in the world. It makes no sense to have global differences. So doing things like this, I think, are important in terms of making sure that the policies are there, but actually just those acts of kindness. And last week was an amazing example where some of our retail team created an amazing thank you video to show our L&D team how grateful they were for some recent training. And actually just these random acts of kindness that are so present in our workplace, I think makes such a difference to the team's morale, to the culture that we're building. And I think, these things that happen internally, I hope then also reflect in the products we make, in the campaigns we do, in the communication we do, because really the whole ecosystem is just so linked together. And then in terms of doing the right thing, so much has happened over the last few years, particularly kind of 2020 coming into 2021 with the pandemic, and so many diversity. There's been so many challenges in the world, and we're seeing people suffer. And I think what we really feel like at Deciem, the bigger we get, the more responsibility we feel we have to actually make sure the right voices are heard, to make sure that we are using the resources we have now to do more good. And we have this saying within the business that ultimately the more we power growth, the more good we can do. And I think that's something that is so important to our team. It's so important to our audience. And that's something that we will never lose. And hopefully we can just do more as we go along. So really at the core of everything comes down to authenticity. We exist to challenge the beauty blueprint, and we hope that actually our impact in the industry, and maybe even further than just the beauty industry, if we could show people one thing, is that actually doing the right thing can be a successful business model. It can be your purpose, it can be your vision. And I think, again, the more transparency that is coming through from brands, through their socials, through their teams, through their audience, through their products, through their packaging. And every decision we make, we say, is this the right thing for our people? Is it right for our audience? Is it right for the planet? Because those are things that are so important to us. And I think in the past, and actually not just the past, even today, many businesses still have to put profit first. And ultimately, we understand business, what needs to be there to kind of make things a success. But actually, when you start doing the right thing, it's amazing, actually, the success that can then follow. And I think that's been such a principle at Deciem all the way through. Put brand first, put our values first, put our principles first. And let's hope that then we get where we need to. And I think just, these pillars of honesty and authenticity, and actually building trust with our audience. Consumers today, I don't believe they just buy a product, they buy a brand. They want to join your brand, they want to join your community. And I think actually, the shifts in human and in mankind, people do want to do so much good for the world today. And I think there's a big calling on corporations and on businesses to actually be part of the change we want to see. I think there's a recognition that actually it's not necessarily enough just to leave it to governments and to charities anymore. Let's, businesses that employ many people, that, work with kind of a huge audience, work with suppliers, touching people all over. Actually, maybe we should use the resources we have, the platform we have, to actually really be the change we want to see in the world. So I think kind of living through all of these values at every touch point within the business, which again is easiest to do when you get to a certain size, and it's a very different world to being a startup. But I think having that value of always doing the right thing, I think is just so important to get you to really where what's right for us. Everyone has to do what's right for their business, but for us it's certainly around that, and being adaptive, especially in the COVID pandemic. We quickly obviously realized our retail stores would be shutting. We had over 300 of our retail teams based working in stores. And with the prospect of suddenly global store shutting, which happened obviously in spring of 2020, we had to quickly pivot, and we didn't want to make redundancies. We said everyone needs to be protected. So actually we quickly changed everyone online to do online consultations. So actually everyone kept all of the hours, and all their contracts stayed the same. Our audience then got to have interactions, but actually just in a virtual room. So I think, again, these kind of being nimble to always kind of stay true to your values of looking after everyone, I think is just so important. And we hope if we can inspire anyone that doing the right thing can be a successful business model, then we will be feel very privileged that we could have made that impact in the world. And that brings me to the end of our presentation on authenticity.